Hey everybody, I'm Jack Reeder with Future Pastimes, and I'm the designer of the Chasm Mauritania expansion, which is the third expansion for the classic Dune board game, the 2019 edition from Gale Force 9. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about one of the variants from this expansion, which is Homeworlds, and we're going to focus specifically on Arrakis, or more specifically, the southern hemisphere of Arrakis, which is where the Fremen reserves are. So the Fremen have all of their reserves on Arrakis, but the board is just the northern hemisphere, which is why the polar sink, which is at the top of the world of Arrakis, is in the center. So everything else is part of that northern hemisphere. But your reserves for the Fremen, you're on the other side. So we have this southern hemisphere token, which is where you put your reserves. So you'll start with 10 of your forces on the reserves token, and the other 10 will be placed on the board per the setup for the Fremen. So the way that the homeworlds work is you have an accompanying homeworld card that has a high threshold side for when you have a certain number of your reserves there. So for the Fremen, this is whenever they have 3 or more forces on their southern hemisphere token, then they're considered at high threshold, and they will get an additional advantage. And that advantage for the Fremen is that they're starred Fedaykin tokens, and they have 3 of these Fedaykin tokens. They may be placed immediately into any territory where you have forces when revived. So the Fremen can only revive 1 Fedaykin token per turn in advanced. Now in basic, this still works. The Fedaykin tokens don't do anything, but you do have those 3-star tokens, and it's a way for you to take advantage of the fact that they have the stars already on them. So you get to place those in a territory where you already have forces when they are revived. And so in basic, you can revive all of them if all of them are in the Tleilaxu tanks at the same time, because you have the 3 free revival. So that's going to be interesting for the Fremen, because if they have some forces in a territory and they're in a battle and they dial, but they don't full dial, then they can bolster those forces with 1 more token, possibly up to 3 more tokens in basic, when they do their revival, rather than having to then ship them in the shipping and movement phase. So again, it's not a huge advantage, but it is a nice little extra perk that they get when they're doing their revival. Now, once they dip down to under 3 forces on their reserve token, they're going to flip this to low reserve. So low reserve is whenever they have 0, 1, or 2 of their tokens in reserves. They're going to flip down. They lose the high threshold advantage, but the Fremen actually don't get a penalty. So most of the other factions, when they're at low threshold, they have a penalty, but here it says no penalty. In addition, when you're at low threshold, their free revival is +1, and if they collect Chom Charity, they will get 1 extra spice from the bank, so they'll have up to 3 spice. And it's important to note that if you are at 2 spice, you're not collecting Chom Charity, so you won't get the 1 just because you're at low threshold. But if you're at 1 spice, you would get 2, and if you were at 0, you'd get 3. Now, you can attack other players' homeworlds, and other players can attack the southern hemisphere of Arrakis and try to occupy it. And if they do, if they get into a battle there, or if there are no reserves, and when they ship to the southern hemisphere, they're just there by themselves, they're going to gain an occupier advantage. So here, they're going to have rounded down of all spice that the Fremen collect during the spice collection is given to the occupier. So that'll be spice collected from desert territory, or if you're playing advanced and you have collected spice for occupying Tuix or Arrakis or Carthage, then the occupier is going to get half of that spice. So Fremen have to worry about that. Now remember, anytime that you're in a battle as a faction on your own homeworld token, you're going to get a bonus, and it's going to be 2, and that is the same for high or low threshold for the Fremen. So they're going to add 2 to their dial, so it's a little bit of a home field advantage. It's also the number of forces that they would lose if there is a laser gun shield explosion in a battle on their homeworld. and that's just for them. So the invading forces would lose all of their forces in such an explosion. But the Fremen, in this case, would only lose 2 of their undialed forces in those battles. So Southern Hemisphere of Arrakis for the Fremen gives them a couple of little perks, and they don't have to worry so much about being at low threshold. They do have to worry about somebody occupying it. But if they're not collecting much spice, or they don't really care about that, then it's no big deal. And they're going to be able to bring in 3 of their forces back onto their reserves if that's how many they have in the tanks, because that is how you get more forces onto your own homeworld, is through revival. You don't normally get to ship from Arrakis, or the normal northern hemisphere of Arrakis, back to the reserves. Only if the guild are in the game can you do something like that. So there you have it. That is how the Southern Hemisphere card and token work for the Fremen. Let me know if you have any other questions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.